medium. What's up YouTube? This is Bullets and Blackstone. I'm gonna show you how you can make the perfect steak on the Blackstone. Let's get it. All right, family, so I got today a New York strip from Costco that we're gonna be throwing on the Blackstone. Notice the size of the steak, about 2 fingers width of thickness. This is gonna help you get that perfect even sear. When you get that, you let gravity do the work. When it's on the griddle surface, it's gonna get a nice even crust. So make sure, tip number one, when you're looking for a steak, make sure that you get something that is of at least 2 inch thickness. So that way you get a perfect sear, and it's gonna help you get a nice medium rare on the inside because it's not gonna overcook fast. Tip number one, get a thick cut of steak. Go for either a New York or a nice ribeye steak. There's other cuts of meat out there, but that's gonna be your easiest to get it right with. So you notice I have mine's vacuum sealed. The reason for that is because we're dry brining it overnight. So over the course of maybe 24 hours. You don't have to do that, but you wanna make sure that you salt your steak for about 30 minutes to an hour before throwing it on the griddle. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna get your steak, you're gonna open it, you're gonna have your regular meat out, get salt, pour a generous amount of salt over everything. Too much salt is a good thing. You don't wanna pour a little bit because you see how thick this is? You want the salt to penetrate inside to the center of the meat. If you cook it too fast, it's just gonna be salt on the layer and it's not gonna penetrate on the inside. The salt is gonna draw out the moisture from the steak. That way you pat it dry before you go onto the griddle surface so that you get that nice even crust. So first thing you're gonna do is you're gonna open up your steak. You're gonna get salt, whether it's sea salt or kosher salt. Make sure it's one of those two. And you're gonna go ham on the salt. You're gonna pour it over the entire steak. Cover this in salt front, side, and back. And in my case, I vacuum sealed it overnight. You don't have to do that, but that was just because I defrosted it and I kind of needed to do that to preserve the steak. But ideally, you're gonna open up the steak, pour out the salt, and then leave it out. If you're doing it on the same day, leave it room temperature. So that way when you go to cook it in about 30 minutes to an hour, longer the better, then it would be nice at room temperature. So when it touches the griddle surface, you're gonna get that nice sear. So another important tip is you're gonna need to use paper towels. So what you wanna do is once you get that steak out, take your paper towels, pat it all dry. The drier, the better. Moisture is the enemy of a golden crust. You want to get a perfect sear, you got to get the moisture out. So that's why it's important to dry brine the steak, get it salted up. When you get about maybe an hour in or about a half hour, you're going to notice that on the steak, all that moisture that you see over here, that's going to come out to the surface. It's like the steak is bleeding through. Then before you go to throw on the griddle, you're gonna grab your paper towels. You're gonna pat it dry once again. Make sure you get it all dry on every single side. It should be as dry as possible. It's not gonna be perfect, but as dry as possible before putting it on the griddle. And then you can add whatever other seasoning you want. If you want to do like a steak rub or pepper or garlic, you can add all that right before going onto the griddle or after. But the most important thing is that you salt it. Salt is gonna bring out the flavor of the steak. So we're gonna do that first. I already salted my steak, so you're not gonna see me do it on camera, in this video at least. So this is already salted. So what you'll see is after sitting in the fridge for overnight, all that salt already absorbed inside the steak. You don't see any salt on it. But yesterday, this was all covered in white sea salt. Now it penetrated into the steak. You can't see it anymore. That's what you want. That's a dry brine. So then before I throw it on the griddle, I'm gonna add the pepper, I'm gonna add the garlic, and we'll see that. And then I'll show you how to do the sear. All right, another tip before getting the steak onto the griddle is getting a good steak weight. This one here is a bacon press from the Blackstone griddle kit. It has good weight to it. So what this will do is once you lay your steak on the griddle surface, so there's your griddle, it's cooking, you're gonna grab your steak weight and you're gonna lay it right on top of that steak. Give it about a minute. You don't wanna do it the entire time or it'll squeeze all the juice inside the steak out of it. So leave it for about a minute and then take it off. And that's gonna ensure even contact with the griddle surface. So imagine this countertop is the griddle surface, is gonna be completely even. After about 4 to 5 minutes, depending on the thickness of your steak, in this case, this one's pretty thick, so it might take maybe 6 to 7 minutes. When you go to flip it, all of this is gonna be an even crust. So a steak weight is gonna help out, and I'll show you that when we get on the griddle. All right, family, so here we go. Now that we have the steak cut open, first thing you're gonna notice, there's tons of moisture, right? So I'm gonna get all that out. Look at that nastiness. So we gotta pat it dry with paper towels. Moisture is the enemy of a good sear, so get it as dry as you can. And mind you, it looks oxidized now because the salt have been dry brining it for over 24 hours now. So if you see that gray, that's normal. Look at dry aged steaks, don't freak out. My wife, who is the camera woman right now, panicked about it, and I had to show her some images on Google. So don't trigger your steak man. Here we go. So we got our New York strip. Go ahead and slap it somewhere that you can season it. Now we're gonna add the black pepper, and then we're gonna add our garlic. Most important thing is make sure that you have it dry. And be generous with the seasoning. Remember, this is a thick steak. Get every side of that steak. Go hard or go home. All right. Got to season with pepper. Add garlic if you want. That's up to you. I always do it. So here we go. Garlic. Like I said, it's optional. You do you. Most people do use garlic, but if you're not going to use regular garlic on the griddle to baste it in, just use the garlic powder. No big deal. At the end of the day, backyard chefs cooking for people who are in our house. That's the audience. So you don't got to do nothing too fancy to have something good at home. But that's how you season it. I'm going to do the next one here. I'm going to use something from a good friend of mine called Kairos. This is Artisan Blends Hawaiian black sea salt and coffee rub. That's going to help with another char on this steak. So I like the flavor of it. Has a coffee taste to it. Very subtle, not too in your face. So shout out to them. Go ahead and give it a try. I'm gonna season this one up with it now in the next one. Catch you on the griddle. And now we're gonna go ahead and throw in some of that Kairos black sea salt and coffee rub. This is very subtle, so you can season with salt, which I would recommend doing that. And here we go, adding that touch of coffee flavor as we go about this. What I like to do with this particular seasoning is I like to season it before and season it after. Pinch and spread. Certain seasonings do well when you season after the steak is done because the high heat on the griddle burns it off. So if you're using anything with like sugars or things like that, add some of that after you cook. All right, family, so we are on the griddle now. You'll see that there's smoke coming out. Let's take a look at the temperature. Now, when we're getting started with steaks, we want to cook high. So I preheated on medium high, and I just let it sit for about 10 minutes until it gets hot. So now if I take my thermometer, let's see where we're reading. 425. So 400 and up is where we want to be. You don't want to go past like 500, let's just say, because then that's just gonna burn everything. The sweet spot for me for searing a steak, 400 degrees, and you don't even need oil. You can just use the fat cap of the steak and just lay it on the fat cap, and that'll be your oil. It'll render out the fat, and that'll be your oil. I'll show you how to do that. So I got some potatoes going, and here we go with the steak that has the coffee rub. We're gonna render the fat cap by laying it down on its side. We're letting that go for a bit. We're gonna hold it for about 1 minute before the fat starts to render out, and then we'll lay the steak down on top of the fat, and that'll be your oil. All right, now here comes the flip. And now the steak goes down. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna add the steak weight, which is right over here. Grab a hold of that weight and just lay it right on top of it. Give it about 30 seconds, give or take. And then that'll get you a nice even crust. All right, now we got steak 2 down and it is searing along. So we're gonna switch that steak weight, place it on this one. I just laid it down. And then we're gonna come back to check on how this is doing. All right, so the steak's been sitting for about 5 minutes. We're gonna give it our first flip. Let's check on that crust. And that's what we wanna see. Get that laid down here. And now let's check on this one, see if it's ready yet. Looks about ready. Slipping, flip it. There we go. Sorry, I'm holding the camera with one hand. But that's what you wanna see, that Maillard reaction, where you see that the crust started to build as soon as you let it sit there for about 5 minutes. All right, so we're gonna check on this steak with the thermometer. And this is about 120 Fahrenheit, so we're gonna give it a few minutes and we're gonna take it off the grill. All right, again, like the first flip, we're gonna add the steak weight. This time about maybe 30 seconds because you don't wanna squeeze out all the juice that's in there. Just enough to give it contact with the griddle surface, and then I'm gonna put on the other one. All right, so now we look at the thermometer. It's around 125, so that's where we took it off the griddle. And here's what they look like. So you see you got that perfect crust going on. Now what you wanna do is don't cut into it right away. You wanna set a timer for about 5 minutes. Don't cut into it unless it's past 5 minutes, because every ounce of juice that's around is gonna go right back into the steak. If you cut it through, it won't be ready to eat. So set a timer for 5 minutes. All right, guys, so this is the final result. You can see that we got that perfect crust right on top. Hear this? You hear that? That's when you know you did it right. It's been resting now for a little over 5 minutes. So we're gonna cut into it and let's see how it came out. Medium. If you cut into a little bit earlier, you're not gonna have that gray brand around it. You'll get a perfect medium, but there we go. We're gonna kill this steak now. So if you guys liked this video, if you felt like this helped you out, drop a comment below. Let me know if we missed anything or if there's something else you'd like to see. But if you wanna level up your Griddle Nation game on your Blackstone, go ahead and subscribe to this channel. We're gonna put a lot more out like this. Let me know what you think.